What's going on, people? Hope you all are well. Welcome back to the show. I've got a couple of shows for you this evening. First of all, we're going to do a bit of a roundup show, and then I'm going to dedicate some time to Arsenal because for some reason, this is an absolutely crazy window that just keeps bringing up surprises as far as Arsenal Football Club are concerned. So I'm going to be back later on to do a late night, around about 11 o'clock for you before you all go to bed. Welcome to the stream. Pete, thank you for jumping on, my friend. What are you saying?
All good, all good.
Nice surprise, man. Nice surprise.
Yeah, I got the message late, so I thought, come on, man. I thought I'd jump on and show some love and obviously support you in the channel, mate. So I hope you're
always welcome, my friend. Always welcome, and it's a pleasure to chat football with you, mate. Going to talk a little bit of football in general, man, because there's been some big news today for a few clubs. Not so much Newcastle, Arsenal, unless you can tell me different. But I want to start with Harry Kane because it looks like Bayern Munich and Tottenham are meeting, but I've just spoken to Sava, literally just got off a voice note with him not long ago, and he was saying that they look to be £20 million apart. Now, I'm not being funny, Pete. Surely if you're travelling over, you've had a video WhatsApp call or Zoom or whatever they call it nowadays about that price. You don't just come over to London or Bayern Munich and go, what? Oh, is there a 20 million difference? Like, surely that is a load of rubbish. Now, this is someone trying to pull a fast one, whether it's Bayern or whether it's Spurs. It's actually becoming a little bit embarrassing. Do you know how like Arsenal and Declan Rice just seem to drag on? I can see this happening. I really can. And I think it'll be weeks now before this is decided, but I think it will happen. And I wanted to ask you your thoughts on this move for Harry Kane going to Bayern and what it means for Tottenham, in your opinion, mate.
I'll be honest. I sent on our chat the other day, and I stand by it. Bayern Munich traditionally don't spend massive amounts of money on players. They just don't. They haven't got the finances to do it, and their league doesn't generate enough money to do it. So for me, the big thing is that they have persisted with this throughout the majority of the summer. And then they don't look like they're giving a penny anytime soon. In fact, they look even more confident now than ever that they're going to get him. And for me, that's always been a big part in it. And the fact that they're still persisting in it and they're still trying to get a deal says to me that one, Harry Kane's interested, that he wants to move. And two, it says that Bayern Munich have got the financial capabilities of getting this deal done. Now, we know that Bayern Munich are very good in terms of negotiating deals, and this will be part of it. They've probably got the money that Tottenham want to get Harry Kane over to Bayern, but they're probably trying to get him as cheap as possible. And that's part of what this conversation is. Look, I agree with you, Potts. But they don't come over to London for that meeting and go, hold on a second, you want 20 million more? Like, that conversation could have happened over a message. That could have happened over an email or a phone call, or like you said, over a Teams meeting or Zoom or whatever you want to call it. That didn't need to happen with a flight over in a meeting. They would have known what's wanted. For me, I'm of the opinion, I could be wrong, I don't support Tottenham or I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I would assume that meeting today was sorting out the structure of the deal, how much they're going to pay up front and all the structurings of what goes on afterwards in terms of staggered payments and all the rest of it. And I wouldn't be surprised very soon that it's announced that a deal's agreed. Now, Harry Kane is not going to want to go into a new season playing for Tottenham and then all of a sudden leaving and going to Bayern Munich. For me, I don't think, and you might disagree, Potts, you might have a different opinion on it. I think Harry Kane's going to want this done within the next 2 weeks. He's not going to want to start the new season at Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, I'm here saying, do you guys think Kane will leave this summer or stay? I think he'll go. I really do. I honestly believe he wants to go. I think there's too much talk now. There's too much, what's the word? There's too much murmurings around him and Bayern Munich. And I don't even know if it's just get me out of Tottenham. I think he would have stayed if there was no serious interest. I don't know if he would have pushed for a move at a club if there wasn't one coming forward. But when one comes forward that's in the Champions League, that's, let's be real, it's got some heritage in Europe and also in Germany, I think that you've got to say yes to that. You are guaranteed trophies there. And I think with Harry Kane, he has to look at his position, but also Tottenham need to look at this, what is best for all parties. And I think to get a deal done now is best for all parties. I think it's good for Bayern Munich because he's got a great player. I think it's good for Harry Kane because he gets the move that he finally deserves and wants. And I also think it's good for Tottenham to just get that Done. Get it, move on from it. You've had your generation of Kane. You've got an unbelievable amount of time out of him from 22 to 30. Let him go. Enjoy it. Spend the money wisely on getting some right players in terms of priority signings in. That is centre halves. That is looking at getting a replacement if you can. Now, Pete, I want to ask you about the money because there's rumours that it's going to get close to 100 million euros, which is just shy of 86 million. Do you think that's enough, or do you think Levy's going to want more in terms of pounds for his money for Kane?
Look, Daniel Levy's proven time after time, year after year, that he would want as much money as possible, and he will try and squeeze every last million out of Bayern Munich. But the reality is he's got 1 year left on his contract, and as much as they deny it, as much as they talk about it through the media, they are not going to want to have Harry Kane leave their club for nothing. He is the one player, in fact, I'll go as far as say he's the only player in their team that can actually generate big money in a sale. And that's just the reality of it. You've got the likes of Son, who's already in his 30s, that wouldn't generate that sort of money if he left now. Even the Kulusevskis, they signed him for what, 20, 30 million. Like, they don't generate the sort of money that Harry Kane does. And so for me, I think it's a fair deal. I do. For the situation that we're in. Look, if he had 2-3 years left on his contract, 130 million, no problem. I wouldn't argue that at all. But yeah, I think that's more than fair. I think if it was an English club, I think they'd want 100 million, not euros. They'd want 100 million if they were to let him go. But the fact that it's Bayern and they don't generate as much money, and it means that Harry Kane gets to leave England, so they don't get to see him in the Premier League playing against them. That's where I think they'll probably sign off the deal.
Where does this leave Tottenham if Kane goes? Because a lot of people are saying that they'll get goals from elsewhere. A lot of people are saying that if you actually sort your centre halves out, you won't leak as many goals, so it won't need a 30-goal a season striker. I think that's waffle. I think they'll definitely miss Harry Kane massively, and I think it'll be a huge dent in their season. But I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are, because perhaps Postecoglou can get them playing a style of football without Harry Kane and they move forward. But I think it's going to be a hell of an arse now.
Yeah, well, I'll refer back to the chat that we were in. I wasn't involved in it, but it was a great watch it unfold with
Tobes and Maz. Wow. Yeah. I just kept throwing in grenades for Tobes. He's so rattled. He's so rattled. It's brilliant. I loved it, man. It's just hilarious.
But in all seriousness, not quite the same situation, but similar. And they're always talked about in the same vein. But it reminds me of kind of when we lost Alan Shearer when he retired. And Alan Shearer was our guaranteed goals. He was our guy. Even in the last parts of his season, he was still scoring 20 goals in a season, like at 35 years old. You know what I mean? But it's similar to that. You can never, you can never really properly replace someone that scores you 20, 30 goals a season. You just can't. And to think that you can easily recover from that, it's not easy. Other players can step in, but those players, Richarlison, Son, who didn't have a great season last season, Kulusevski, who also didn't have a great season, they can have better seasons, but they can't replace what Kane does. Kane is a goal scorer season after season after season. He's your guarantee. When everything else fails, Harry Kane will stand up and do the business for you. And to lose that, that's massive, in my opinion. That is huge. But then you talked about the defense as well. I mean, the defense was incredibly leaky. And when you've lost your goal scorer, your main man, and then your defense is leaky, that's a recipe for disaster. But I look, Tottenham's still got time to do business to improve, and I'm sure they will. But yeah, for me, you can't replace that. Not overnight, and not straight away, unless there's a ready-made player available, which I don't believe there is, that Tottenham could afford to come in and replace Harry Kane. So yeah, I think it's a huge hole in the club. And let's not forget, he's a leader. He is like, I know Luis was the captain, but he was almost like the captain. He was the leader of that team. So you're not just losing a goal scorer, you're losing that leadership within your squad of players as well. So it's a double whammy for me.
Yeah, they've lost Lloris and Kane now, so maybe they'll have Eric Dyer with the armband on. It's worrying times for Tottenham, I'll tell you that, mate. Do you know what? I had to just check my computer. I had to just research something because I absolutely cacked myself. Someone just put "Rest in peace, Totti," and I've literally just gone and made sure that Francesco Totti has not passed away, and he's not. He obviously means "Rest in peace, Totti," as in Tottenham Hotspur. Wow, that scared the life out of me. P. White, don't do that to me again, man. But I think he's right. I do think that they're in serious trouble, and I don't look at Tottenham Hotspur's first 11 and go, "Oh dear, that's scary." Now, I could do with by the end of the window, that's for sure. You know, if they get a couple of centre halves in, replace Harry Kane, actually they're looking all right in some positions. They've got their keeper in now. Their fullbacks are actually stronger than last season, in my opinion, with Jed Spence and Adoji coming back, Reguilon coming back. Obviously, in midfield, they've got Basuma, Maddison, and Bentancur, which is quite a good trio in midfield, to be fair. Kulusevski's gone and Charleston are going to score goals. So if they get that centre forward in that can replace Harry Kane in terms of a body, not someone who's going to be as quality as him, and a little bit of strength in depth and certainly some defenders, maybe they'll be okay with one game a week, but it doesn't look good for Tottenham Hotspur as far as I'm concerned. I really don't feel like Tottenham are in a position at the moment to do anything but try and win a trophy next season. Like, for me, if you have to sacrifice a league position of getting into Europe or Conference League, you've done all that. Go and win a trophy. Like, literally, go and win a trophy. If you were finishing 12th and a Carabao Cup, or 6th and trophyless, get the Carabao Cup and 12th. Just take it. Because for me, you know, I know it puts you in the Conference League, which no one wants to be in, but an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup for me is better than coming top 6 for Tottenham. You know, you've had that long without a trophy. You know, West Ham will tell you they would much rather win that Europa Conference League, that gets you into the Europa League, than come 6th and not win a trophy. Because you're still qualifying for the same thing, but you've got something to lift at the end of it. And I've always said this, that Arsenal are in a different position. We needed to get back in the Champions League because of the stature of our club, but we've already done FA Cups and League Cups in our history. When you haven't done them for that long, it still pains me to say it, but Arsenal needed to get Champions League, and now we've got it. Now that we've got it, I'm going for trophies. I'm not going for, make sure we get back in 4th again. I don't want any of that crap. If we got to win a trophy now, right, for me. So Tottenham must be like that. They can't be, let's try and get in the top 5 for Champions League. They've got to go for a trophy, man. So that's what I'd be going if I'm Tottenham. 1 game a week and concentrate on sacrificing games if you have to for a trophy. None of this, we've got Sheffield United, let's play the kids. No, rest them against Brentford at the weekend. Go and bloody win it, you know. And I don't understand why teams don't do that, Pete, in the lower of the league. I don't understand that. I see this quite a lot, and I think, why are Everton playing their kids against Huddersfield? Why aren't they just pamming them with their? It's just so bizarre for me. I don't get it.
See, I can have a bit of an opinion on that, because although Newcastle have kind of been up there fighting at the top end of the table, we as a club over the Ashley years have got used to fighting that relegation battle year upon year. And although we never used to like it, like our club historically, since I've supported them, we've always had this affiliation with the cups, particularly the FA Cup, that Newcastle fans love it. But like, for me, we've always played weaker teams. And the reason being is because the priority for our owner at the time, and for a lot of other owners, Everton, for example, and others, Palace, the lot, the Premier League money and the guarantee of playing Premier League football season upon season is more important for the club, is to generate that money. Now, you know, as a fan, I'm kind of with you. You want to lift the trophy, but the kind of the law and the need for the club to have that Premier League money, because the money between Championship and Premier League is just, they're levels apart. They are levels apart. Leicester, Leeds are going to find out that this season the drop off in money that you earn from those 2 leagues is too great. We've had 2 relegations, so we're used to it. But I think, and
that's fair enough, Pete. Like, sorry to cut you off, and I get what you're saying. So maybe Everton is a bad example to use, and maybe Palace is as well. Tottenham are not going down. I mean, I know people are flirting with it and saying they're going to go down. They're going to go down without Kane. No. They're not going to go down. So for me, a team like Tottenham, who are guaranteed to finish in the top half, let's say, over the last few years, why have they not tried to get a trophy more seriously? Teams like West Ham, for example, they were in a relegation battle this season for a bit. But previously, they were like flirting with European positions. Why did they not go out to go and get that trophy? This season, funny enough, flirt with relegation, they went out to got the trophy. So for me, I think that if you're right, we're safe. It's February. We're still in the FA Cup. We ain't going down unless we lose the rest of our games. I'm going for a trophy. Let's do it. And I don't see enough teams doing that. And, Tottenham are a prime example. Last season, Sheffield United in the FA Cup. I think they had a potential Sheffield United, Blackburn, and then a semi-final. And they played their kids against, not their kids, but they played a mixed side against Sheffield United and got beat. That's embarrassing, Pete. I'm sorry. That is absolutely embarrassing.
Right. You're absolutely right. And look, Tottenham have done that for a few years now, where they played weakened teams and got knocked out. There's been a few over the years that you can look back on and they've made those bad decisions. And it just surprised me. So I'm thinking, Tottenham could have quite easily done what Leicester did a few years ago and win the FA Cup. They could have quite easily done that. Leicester did what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
They played their strongest team in every round and got through. And when it got to the final, they were full of confidence in that competition that they took it to Chelsea and they obviously picked up the trophy. And that's what you'd expect. But I also, and I'm thinking from a Tottenham perspective here, is that there's also a factor, because you've said that, why don't they go for a trophy rather than fighting for top six? Top six guarantees you European football. And the issue with that, and where you might not necessarily agree with it, I can see it from both perspectives, is that when you get European football, it can mean that you're attracting better players to your club. Now, if they're losing Harry Kane's no longer a law to some of these players that have come. Like, for example, I'm interested to know what James Maddison's feeling right now, what he's thinking, because they can't say, and he can't say that he hasn't gone to Tottenham because of the club and nothing related to Harry Kane. He's gone there because probably Harry Kane's talked him into it, and they've had a conversation, and he saw, well, maybe if I'm partnering with Harry Kane, I can get loads of assists, loads of goals, teamwork together, link up, and it will help me with my England chances. It will help Tottenham propel themselves. What is he thinking right now? But equally, if Harry Kane leaves, how can they attract the next big player to Tottenham Hotspur if they're not playing European football? And nobody's really talked about it. Harry Kane has to leave. They're not in Europe. Harry Kane should be playing at the top end. And you talked about it with Bayern Munich playing Champions League football with them this season. That's where he should be. He's one of the best strikers in the world. He has to leave. But equally, how can Tottenham then go and replace him or bring players of that level in when they're not playing European football? So that's where it's kind of both ends. Like, you can argue that by winning a trophy will attract players in, but you could argue that it's harder to win a trophy than it is to get top six.
Yeah,
for a team like Tottenham. So I can see it from the middle, and it might be that I'm kind of sitting on the fence here, but I can see it from either perspective. But I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I see it from most perspective as well. And I think with James Maddison, I'm actually quite laughing because I really like James Maddison. I didn't want him to go to Tottenham. So hopefully he's like, oh, damn, what's happening here? But yeah, exactly. I know you want him at Newcastle and I want him at Arsenal. But I will say this. I do think Maddison will do well at Tottenham. A lot of people are saying he won't. I think he will because I think he's quality. But he will be absolutely devastated if they're getting rid of Harry Kane. Because like you've just said, to get an assist in football, your striker needs to score. Right? It's facts. And he knows he's getting a bang hatful of assists, in my opinion. The GA for Maddison has just gone down because of Harry Kane being sold for me. And I like James Maddison a lot. You know I do. But this is a move that I think will hurt Tottenham fans and will make them think what's actually changed since Gareth Bale and Luka Modric has left. What has actually changed? They've gone round in a circle. They haven't won anything. They're selling their best players again. They've moved to a new stadium. They're still selling their best players. There's a lot wrong with the football club, and I do believe it is Daniel Levy. A lot of people say that he's done a great job at Tottenham. Yeah, he's done some great things, but the ambition or the lack of ambition shown by Daniel Levy so many times has been pathetic. And that's the reason they haven't won a trophy, because Daniel Levy has, I'm sure, said to the managers like Antonio Conte, make sure he gets in the Champions League. Don't worry about trying to get FA Cup. Make sure you're in the Champions League, otherwise we ain't getting money. And I'm absolutely certain that has happened. And as a Tottenham fan, I'd be very, very disappointed by that attitude, because for me, it's about winning. Football is about winning. It's not about competing at the top level and winning nothing. It's not about just being a part of the act. It's about actually going and winning it. And this is what I've said about Arsenal so many times. If you're going to be in the Champions League, I truly believe this is the first time we're competing in the Champions League in a very long time that we have an actually genuine chance of doing quite well in the competition because of the way that we're playing football the last season and hopefully going into this season. For the last few that we were in it was embarrassing, if I'm honest. I mean, 10-2 against Bayern Munich. That's the last result we had in the Champions League. Over aggregate, that was, of course. So for me, it's embarrassing. So Tottenham have been like that. They haven't got smashed like that. They did get battered by Bayern. But my point is, go and win a trophy. Don't just compete to look with the best. Actually go and win something. And that's where I think you guys will have been like that in the past as well, and that's why you can relate. But I want to move on, Pete, to Chelsea, because a lot of Chelsea fans get excited about Chelsea, and I don't quite understand why. I understand that they've got to be a young side, but I said this on Saeed's channel earlier, right? And the chat was going mad because of it already, right? And this was in 2 minutes of me talking. So in 3 years of Chelsea having patience, in 2 minutes they were all shouting. So I said, the Chelsea fan base might not be patient enough for this project to work, because they've always been a fan base in the last 20 years that have been want, get, success. Don't care who manages, 15 managers, but 15 trophies. I've got no loyalty to any of them. I just want to see Chelsea win. That's what Chelsea fan base have been. Chelsea have to change that now. And they weren't able to do it under Graham Potter. Now, in my opinion, Graham Potter was a disaster. In fact, it went completely wrong. I'm not so sure it was all him, but he got sacked, and we're going to now see if Pochettino can last and do a better job. They cleared out pretty much everybody over the age of 27 to 39, apart from Thiago Silva, it seems. So now they've got this completely young side. When I've spoken to Chelsea fans and I'm saying, look, I don't really think you've got the squad depth. Yes, we have. Hang on a minute. Andre Santos might be a fantastic centre midfielder. I'm sure he's top quality, but I don't think he's going to take you towards a title in the next couple of years, in my opinion. I might be wrong, but I just don't see that. I don't look at Chukwuemeka and think, wow, that kid is taking you to a title. I don't look at Nicholas Jackson and think, oh, God, Drogba's back. I don't look at the wingers in Mudryk and Sterling and go, I tell you what, with the right coaching, they're going to get like 30 goals each. I'm just not scared of Chelsea is what I'm getting at. Not yet anyway. It might be in a few years' time. My point was, Pete, I don't think if they have the season that Arsenal under Arteta have had, in 4 seasons, you're going to win nothing at all, but he will be building towards a title. Are Chelsea going to have that much patience? That was my question in the chat. It's not going to take us that long. We'll be back next season for a title. You think it's going to take 4 years? Are you crazy? Have you not seen some of these young players we've got? Hang on a minute. That's in 2 minutes. What are you going to be like in football? All these fans seem to think that football just goes, we get better every season. You can quite easily do this. Yeah. And I just think with Chelsea, I look at their team and I look at their squad. I don't go, wow, Pete. I look at it, and if it was me looking at it as a non-football fan, I'd go, I've heard of Thiago Silva. I know the rest, though. Don't know any of these young players they've got, these youth academy players. Oh, no, they've spent 50 million on most of them. I don't know who they are then. Now, you need to be, what I'm getting at is you need to be really seriously good at football and have a knowledge to know who Andre Santos is, to know what Chukwuemeka's come from. If you're just looking at football and you're looking at the likes of, I know who Harry Kane is and I know who Jack Grealish is, they're not going to have a clue who any of these people are, because they're youngsters that are not ready yet, and they're going to be ready in a few years. So I might be completely wrong and be muddied here and have egg on my face, but I don't see Chelsea doing anything but competing for a top 6 place this season. What's your thoughts, mate?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that I mentioned about patience with regards to Chelsea last season with regards to Graham Potter. And I said, if you want Potter to do what you want him to do and why he was brought to the club, he's going to need time. And it might be that it's a really bad season for that to happen, but you're going to need to give him time. Clearly they didn't. And it was a really, really poor season for them. But Chelsea were in the midst of a transition period. There's a lot of players that they needed to move on. Clearly, they have done with a lot of players this summer. And there needed to be a shift in that change. Now, the one thing I'll say is that Chelsea are a really interesting team to watch this season, because I have no idea what to expect from them. I really don't. Chelsea fans, and this goes into my point, that Chelsea fans will expect them to hit the heights and to be back up challenging, because let's be honest, that's what they've done for the last 20 years. Like, Chelsea have had a process of a manager turnover that has been 2 to 3 years. And if you're not providing success for this club, we'll move you on and we'll get a manager in that will do the job. And that's what they've done. And they've built success off it. They've won a lot of trophies off the back of doing that. But what that shows is that there isn't a lot of patience and there isn't a lot of long-term building in that. Now, with the new owner, it kind of looked like at the beginning of last season that he was looking to build that with Potter, is building a long-term like position with a manager and saying, right, you're my guy for the next 5 or 6 years. Go and build us a brand new team and a team that can win trophies. But the pressure built and they had to make a decision. I'm interested to look. I like Poch. I think he's a fantastic manager. I don't think he's had a good few years in the jobs that he's been at. And I think he struggled. But I think he's probably the right guy for Chelsea right now. And it looks like they have made improvements. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be fighting at the top end of the table straight away. Like you said, there's some players there that have still got massive question marks on their name. Players that have either been signed for big money or young players that are coming through that haven't really shown it over a long period of time that they can do the business and take Chelsea forward. So it's a really interesting thing for me to see. I think, look, Chelsea will improve on last season. There's no doubt about it. But I think there's going to have to be a huge shift in a lot of other clubs for Chelsea to be back up there in the top 4 fighting for Champions League football. That's my opinion on it. I think a lot of other teams are going to have bad seasons in order for Chelsea to be there. They've got good players, but it takes time to build. Jackson, I watched him against Newcastle in the summer series. He was their best player for me. He looked a quality player. But there's some other players that they had in their team that I wasn't really impressed with, and that's only one game. But I do think that there's going to need to be patience. But again, as I go back to Chelsea, are not used to being patient. They're
Absolutely.
used to improving that win, that trophy, then and there. So if they go into the first 10 games and they're not in the top 4, top 5, and they're drawing or losing games, I do think there'll be some pressure. Not to say that the manager will go, but I think there'll be some pressure there because there is an expectation that they are going to push them for the top end of the table.
Listen, we saw that the Saudi Arabian clubs have been sniffing around, and we saw the bid go in for Kylian Mbappe. Today, there's been a bid going for Victor Osimhen as well of £120 million. I don't think he's going to go, even if it gets accepted. I really don't believe that he will want to go over there at his age. I really don't see that, unless, of course, he is a mercenary and goes for the money. Do you think there's any truth in any of these Premier League clubs sniffing around either of these two, seeing as bids are going in for both of them? And Kylian Mbappe, they're talking about loan moves potentially. Liverpool and Chelsea today being mentioned as wanting Kylian Mbappe if there was an opportunity for that. And Osimhen as well, I think, is wanted by pretty much every Premier League club that needs a striker, including Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, United, the list goes on. I don't see either of these coming to the Premier League, not this season anyway. Maybe they will do one day. I think Madrid bound is Mbappe, if I'm honest. I just think they're waiting to see what they can do there. Maybe they have to sell somebody before they can put in a bid or make it work. And Osimhen, I think, will stay at Napoli until next summer. What's your thoughts on both these players, mate?
Osimhen, I don't think is going anywhere. I'd be shocked if he does. And look, there's a lot of money on the table, but Osimhen has got the world at his feet, in my opinion. I think he could, in Europe, go to a team that can sweep up and win everything. And I think it would be slightly disrespectful. I don't think it'd be a couple of years or 2 or 3 years wasted, but it would be 2 or 3 years lost at the highest level. And the highest level, no doubt about it, is European football. But this is what it is. You've got the Saudi clubs that are willing to pay the fees that these clubs want. There is no doubt. I think they're putting €120 million bid. Napoli want 150. The Saudi clubs will come back with that, and it'll be a question of whether Napoli are ready to agree. I think if they come back with 150 million euros, they'll agree a fee, and then it will be down to Osimhen to make that decision. I do think he'll turn it down and stay at Napoli, but I do think that if he does leave Napoli, they're going to have to reduce the fee, because I don't think there's anyone in Europe right now that can afford what they're asking for. There's no club that is willing, and no club that he's willing to go to that will pay that sort of money to get him out of Napoli. And I think it's going to be a really, really interesting situation with Mbappe being the other one. The fact that he's not even the bid's been accepted and he's not even negotiating with the clubs from Saudi. I can't remember what the club is. Is it Al Hilal?
Al Hilal, yeah.
That tells you everything you need to know. He wants Real Madrid. Real Madrid's the club he's going to be at. He'll sit on the bench for PSG for the first 5 or 6 games, maybe. But at some point, PSG are going to need him. And he'll be back playing for them. There's no doubt about it. He is too good of a player for PSG to just let sit on the bench all season, or to sit and not play any football. They'll have him back at some point. When Champions League comes calling, when they're struggling in the league and they need him to come on and make the difference, which he has time and time again for PSG, they will call back Kylian Mbappe and he will do the business. He'll see out his season and he'll go to Real Madrid in the summer. He should have gone last year. It's his own fault. He shouldn't have signed a new contract. Everyone knew, including PSG, that he wanted to go to Real Madrid. This saga could have been done with, and they could have let him go. PSG could have moved on and rebuilt the club line by now, and they chose not to. So they put themselves in.
It's actually been quite embarrassing, isn't it, from PSG's point of view and by Mbappe's point of view. Like, for me, it's clear he wants to go Real Madrid. I think it will be made happen. But what the hell was all that nonsense about last year? Just go to Real Madrid and allow PSG to move on and build. Like, they're going to lose Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe. Fair play. Go and rebuild and go and do it in the right way. All of this, like, to be fair, he's played it well for Mbappe because he can just sit tight and wait for his move to Real Madrid. But as far as PSG are concerned, it's been a shambles, absolute shambles from all 3 of them, to be honest. Messi walking away for nothing. You've got Neymar who don't want him now. They're like, we might have to get him on loan. We don't really want him being around the place. And Mbappe's pulling their pants down. It's poorly. And all of these absolute prima donnas, all these like Galacticos, as you call it, and they've got no Champions League to show for it. They're just winning that French league every year. It's just embarrassment, mate.
Honestly, Potts, like with the PSG situation, I think it's desperation, which is why they gave him the contract. They didn't just give him a contract; they gave him responsibility and they gave him power within
embarrassing.
The club. And that was the embarrassing part. But it was through desperation. Is that they know he is the last big superstar that they could attract to PSG, because now you look at the league ranking. In the French league are like 6th now. In terms of the league rankings, you've got like the Dutch league and the Belgian league that are ranked higher than them. So the league and its status is dropping. You still get quality players coming out there. You always will do. But the league and its stature is dropping. So you're not going to attract those big name stars to PSG anymore, because the league isn't what people thought it was going to be. It is pretty much a one-horse race 9 times out of 10 most seasons, with PSG in it. So they know that if Kylian Mbappe goes, that's it. They won't be able to attract that big star to the club anymore. And so they've tried to hold on to him for as much as possible. The fact that he's a Parisian helped that. And that kept him at the club because he felt like he needed to stay because it's his boyhood club. But now it's gone beyond that. He's 24 years old. He wants to win everything. He wants to win a Ballon d'Or. And he knows that he can't win a Ballon d'Or playing for PSG. He needs to play for Real Madrid and needs to win the Champions League. And the best place to do that is in Spain.
Absolutely. Let's quickly touch on, before we come to Newcastle to close, I want to touch on this Gvardiol situation. I don't understand what's happening here. Manchester City, I thought, had wrapped it up. It looks like Liverpool have now come into play. And I think that they're saying, we'll see how much he's after, because they're talking about £85 million or something like that. And Liverpool have come to say, hello, we fancy it. I still think he's going to go to Manchester City. I don't really understand the hold-up. Do you think there's any truth to Liverpool wanting him? I mean, it's a position that they need, in my opinion. Gvardiol and Konaté would be a fantastic centre-half pairing. Diaz and Gvardiol probably go down as the best pairing in the world if that happens. But what's your thoughts on this one, mate?
I'll be honest with you. I wasn't aware of the Liverpool interest, but that certainly opens things up for sure. And I think if Liverpool do show an interest, I think Man City are then going to be forced into...
Have they got the money, Pete, do you think, Liverpool?
Well, that was the first thing. Is when I heard you say that, I was thinking, Liverpool, have they got the money? They've spent quite a bit this summer. They've obviously recouped a little bit with Fabinho and Henderson going, but they've also spent a little bit on the players, Szoboszlai and McAllister. And they're looking at Lavia as well for the best part of 50 million. So they've spent a fair bit. They've recouped a little bit, but I'm thinking if they've got the money to go and slap down 85 million for him and spend 50 million for Lavia. I mean, the one thing they can't moan about Liverpool fans if they do that they can't moan that they haven't spent money, because clearly they put money down on the table this summer if that's the case. But I'd be surprised if they got both, if I'm honest. I think they would have to get rid of at least one, maybe two centre backs to be able to fund that, because they've already got quite a few already in there. I know we can play left back as well, but Robertson isn't really going to be moved. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting situation. But I do think that Man City are the ones that Gvardiol wants to play for. I think that's the club that he wants to go to.
I think so. There's been quite a few outlets reporting it, particularly Liverpool, close to Liverpool, Paisley Gates and the Liverpool Echo, the Empire of the Cop, 442, all saying Gvardiol to Liverpool. Talk Sport saying also that Liverpool could allow Man City to miss out on Gvardiol, but the legend that is Fabrizio Romano has told Give Me Sport that he may be way too expensive, or is going to be way too expensive for Liverpool this summer. So I expect him to stay in the links very, very heavily with Manchester City, and we'll see what happens there. Let's talk about Newcastle, Pete. We've got a few super chats to do, which I'm going to do last because it's about a West Ham. This one is coming in from Chris. He says, Hawaii, Pete and Dan. Fingers crossed Ashworth pulls out good 3 or 4 rabbits out of his hat before the window closes. Squad depth is an issue. Excited by Anderson and Miley, though. I pray they get game time. Talk to me. What's this mean, Pete?
Well, first off, he's put Hawaii, War, Pete and Dan. War is another word of saying our. That's an hour.
Okay.
It's our Pete and Dan. So when we refer
Sorry for butchering that Geordie accent. I'm terrible at stuff like that.
No. When we refer to someone that's one of our own, one of ours.
Nice. So big up, Chris.
You know, so yeah. Look, this summer's been one where I've had to kind of sit back and take stock, because we've been linked with like over 200 players, and it was exciting at the beginning when everything was being linked with, we're linked with that player, and very quickly you realise that it's come to nothing. Newcastle as a club have become a closed shop. Not a lot of stuff's coming out from Newcastle about who we're interested in. All these links are coming out from other areas, and Newcastle are just not saying anything. And
who have you got in so far? You got Tonali's come in the door.
Yeah, we've got Tonali and we've got Harvey Barnes. We've got Minter as well, young lad Minter that we signed, and he's gone on loan to Feyenoord this season, who are also playing Champions League football. So he's going to be exposed to Champions League football. I think he's only like 18, 19, young lad, looks a promising player. And we paid like 7 million for him. So look, 2 first-team players, Tonali and Barnes. For me, look, we're clearly still interested in Livramento. I would expect something to move on that in the next week. After Livramento, potentially, I do see another 2 players coming in. So another 3 players to come in, take us to 5 for the window. I would say that is a distinct possibility for me. It's an interesting situation because Ashworth is for me is doing fantastic work, but a lot of Newcastle fans have been expectant in terms of they wanted everything done before the season starts, but it don't work like that. The window finishes at the end of August, so everyone's kind of getting a little bit frustrated. Oh, we're not ready. We're not yet. We want this done. We want that done. It doesn't work like that. You guys will know the same. A lot of your deals get done later on in the window, and I think Newcastle will do some of their best work probably at the back end of this month, back end of August. So look, I'm not worried at all. I can't remember what the second part of the question was there.
About being excited by Anderson and Miley.
Yes. Now, this is the interesting thing. A lot of people outside of Newcastle won't be aware. Elliot Anderson has had a fantastic preseason.
Okay.
I think he's 21 years old. He can play in a midfield 3. He can play on the left side of midfield. He has been unbelievable. Like, his performances have been so good. Like, he's come back, he's bulked up, he looks fitter, he looks stronger. He really looks the part. And Willock hasn't played a minute of pre-season because of his hamstring injury from the back end of last season. He is going to be fighting for his place. Sean Longstaff hasn't played pre-season either. He's going to be fighting for his place as well, because these boys, Bruno's come back, he's getting his fitness back. Joe Linton looks the same player, but Elliot Anderson's come in and look the part. Now, Lewis Miley is 17 years old, just turned 17. Honestly, I watched him make his debut. I was in the away end at Stamford Bridge last game of the season, and he came onto the pitch. He's already 6'2", plays in midfield, quite skinny, and he'll bulk up. But honestly, he gave Enzo a lesson in the minutes that he was on the pitch. His ability on the ball, I was shocked. He was 16. I think he might have even been 16 at the time. He's only just turned 17. And I just thought, wow, he hit the bar. He was close to scoring on his debut. He hit the bar on the edge of the area. Unlucky not to score. But you know what? He's come back from pre-season. He's even better. Honestly, he played in the number 6 position in America. And he really, really does look the part. I've been so impressed with him. He is further ahead than Elliot Anderson was at 18. Lewis Miley is at 17. Like, he's got 4 years on Elliot Anderson, and he's already further ahead in his progression. There is, honestly, lots of people are referring to him and his progression very much along the lines of Jude Bellingham, the way he's developing. Like, he really, honestly does look the part. And Eddie Howe's already said he's not going on loan. There's already been teams inquiring about him. He said he's not going on loan. He's going to stay with us. He's going to develop with us. I'm not saying he's going to start games for Newcastle, but I think he'll get minutes. 110% he's going to play minutes for Newcastle. He's going to get his Champions League debut at some point. He'll play in the Premier League. He really does look the part, and I think he's got a massive, massive future. So Lewis Miley, keep an eye out on him. Just turned 17. Honestly, his ability on the ball is unreal. Like, it's quality.
Yeah, man, that's one to watch for the future for sure, 100%. Listen, from an outside looking in point of view, I don't know the backup to Newcastle as well as you do, but if I'm looking at things from an Arsenal point of view at Newcastle, I think perhaps a fullback, a centre back, and maybe another wide player, and I think you're just about there. I don't think there's an outstanding amount of players that you need, but you certainly need to remember that you need strength in depth. I think Harvey Barnes, obviously, and Almiron are there, but other than those two, with the selling of ASM, I'm not so sure that you've got a load of wingers. But maybe I'm wrong. I know Jolinton plays out there, but I'm not so sure that you've got lots and lots. You've got, his name? I'm forgetting one. Who's the young England lad?
We've got Anthony Gordon as well.
Gordon, that's the one. Anthony Gordon.
Look, a lot of people and a few on the race for Europe kind of like laughed off the Anthony Gordon signing when he came in and the money that we spent on him. And he was very open and honest at pre-season. He said he wasn't fit enough. He didn't realise the level that he needed to be at playing for Newcastle United. And it's literally taken him 6 months. He scored at Stamford Bridge last game of the season, first goal for Newcastle. But what's made him...
He had a good Euros as well, didn't he? Tournament?
He got player of the tournament.
Yeah, he was superb,
he was outstanding. Didn't score loads and loads of goals. I think he's got a couple, but his performances were outstanding. But he's come back to us fit and firing. Now, he can play anywhere across that front three. He played up front for England under 21s as the main striker. He can play predominantly on the left. He can play on the right. He's going to be playing minutes. So, like, on the left-hand side, you've got Joe Linton that can play there. He got 6-7 goals from there last season. You've got Harvey Barnes, who have just signed. You've got Anderson that can play there. You've got Elliot Anderson. Anthony Gordon and Elliot Anderson that can play there as well. On the right-hand side, you've got Miguel Almiron, 11 goals last season. You've got Jacob Murphy, had a great season for us, being a bit part, but then ended up being first choice for a period of time. But you've also got Anthony Gordon that can play on that right-hand side. So you've got options on both wings.
But you think Gordon and Barnes are your two starters? Is that what you think?
No. I think Miguel Almiron will start. He's looked good at pre-season. And then it's a toss-up. I actually don't know who's going to start. Harvey Barnes had just started for the club. Traditionally, Eddie Howe doesn't throw his players straight into the team. So I wouldn't be surprised first game of the season that Tonali doesn't play either, because he did it with Bruno Guimaraes. It took Bruno 6 games to get into the first team to start a match. He builds his players into the team, and then when they get there, they stay there. It's like Botman, first game of the season, he didn't play. He came on 5 minutes against Forest as a sub. Like, he didn't start the game. So he builds players into the team. And it may well be Tonali does the same. He may well do the same with Harvey Barnes. But, Joe Linton has to start. So whether he plays in the midfield 3 or on the left, I'm not sure. Anthony Gordon will be pushing. It's going to be really interesting. There is competition for places at that top end. There really is. But it's exciting. But you're absolutely right. The areas that we're looking to strengthen at the moment is in defence. So a right centre-back, and either a right back or a left back, or a player that can do both. Now, Livramento can play left and right back, but equally, Trippier can play left and right back. So you can play and alternate them. And then we need a centre back in for sure. So I think they'll be the 2 positions that we'll probably target.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think Newcastle are miles short. I don't look at Newcastle's squad. We talk about Chelsea saying I can see holes in it. Man United, I see holes in it. I actually don't see that many holes in Newcastle. And I'll tell you why. Because I know what your first 11 is. I don't know what Chelsea or Man United's first 11 is. Or if I do see it, I see holes in it. I see Manchester United's first 11 and I think, I don't see a centre forward. I don't see a winger that I like other than Rashford. I don't really see a midfield that backs up any of the 3 that are going to clearly start. I don't really see a backup defender that I rate, because Lindelof and Maguire are poor. Their fullbacks are all right. I don't go wow, though. So if you're comparing Manchester United and Newcastle, I don't think you can sit there and say, well, Man United are clearly going to finish above Newcastle because Newcastle got Champions League. I mean, that's nonsense. Man United got Champions League and they've got a squad that looks weaker or as bad, in my opinion, in certain areas. So when Newcastle, I look at their first 11, I look at your midfield, and I'd rather have your midfield than Man United's, if I'm honest. I like Casemiro, but I don't think Bruno's reliable enough. And I think Mount runs around a lot. But I'd have Bruno Guimaraes, I'd have Tonali, and I'd have Joe Linton over them, in my opinion. I look at your front 3. I know Isak's going to score goals. I don't know what this Højlund's going to do for Man United. I don't know. I know that Callum Wilson's going to score goals. I know that you've just mentioned Gordon, but I know that Harvey Barnes would always, if he doesn't score, create. You've mentioned Miguel Almiron getting goals last season. I think your back line is definitely as solid as Manchester United. I know they got the Golden Glove with David De Gea, but your defence was class last year. Yeah. So, and that's without Schär. If you get someone better than Fabian Schär. So I think Newcastle will be in a fine position, mate. I know people are writing you off because you're back in the Champions League, but if you get your recruitment spot on, I think you've got the manager there who knows what he's doing. And I think you're right. Maybe it would be silly and foolish to disrupt what you've done already by throwing in 3 or 4 new faces straight away. I think Eddie Howe moulding them in is probably the right thing to do. So I think it's an interesting one. Let me bring up these couple of questions for you, Pete, because there was a couple. This one, I think I know your answer anyway. Ashley says to Pete, would you rather win the FA Cup or just get top 4 next season? What would you like to do? Because I know you're not really an FA Cup fan. So
the tradition of the FA Cup, I'm not a big fan of, because it's not what it used to be. But, honestly, you asked me last season, I said, top 4 because we needed it in terms of the progression. I'd be inclined to say the same again, say top 4. But look, we've been so long without a trophy. We need a trophy to really kind of kick us on. I think us winning a trophy, whatever it is, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, Premier League, Champions League, whatever it is, I think would give the club and the players a complete different mentality that would take us on to the next level. So
it'll breed winning mentality, mate, throughout the squad. That's what 100%. You need right now for me. That would be what I would have.
You boys know that from over the years.
And I mean, listen, we won the FA Cup in 2020. That team was breaking up. It couldn't stay together. It was toxic under Emery.
Even the early 2000s, Pots. Even the early 2000s, where you were winning trophy Premier Leagues, like those players were quality
doubles, FA Cups,
winning those trophies gave them that mentality that they knew they could go and do it every season. That's kind of what we need.
Absolutely, man. Big up the chat, Lisa as well. Always a legend, Lisa in the house. Let's bring this one up as well. It says, Pete, where do you think you'll finish this season?
Great question. The key to it all is that we're fighting on 4 fronts. So we've got a lot more minutes, a lot more games. We need a bigger squad. Honestly, I think anywhere between 4th and 6th, I think we'll finish. Where that is depends on the season, depends on how we do in other cup competitions. But I think anywhere between 4th and 6th would be classed, in my opinion, a really good season for Newcastle. Because what we'd have done, we'd have gone and backed up a season where we finished 4th and played Champions League and being in Europe, and backed it up with another top 6 finish. And it shows that we've got consistency. And then I think we'd then go and sign another level of players to take us on to the next stage. So that's where I think we'll finish.
It's interesting because this question could be answered differently, and I'll tell you why. At the moment, I can give you a prediction. That could change in a couple of weeks because the window's still open. So at the moment, I have you finishing 4th ahead of Manchester United. That's where I have you finishing. I have Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Newcastle in the top 4. Manchester United don't look good enough to me. No chance at the moment. But that could change in the next couple of weeks. Newcastle could sign players. Man United could sign players. Liverpool might do nothing, and I put Man United and Newcastle in the top 4. You just don't know what's going to change from now to between then. But that's where I would have Newcastle personally.
We've got the hardest. We've got the hardest start to the season of any team in the Premier League. So
go on. What's your first 6 then? What's your first 6 then?
So our first game of the season, our first selection of games, we've got Villa at home. Then we've got Man City away. Then we've got Liverpool at home. Then I think we've got Brighton away. Then we've got Brentford, I think. And then we've got Sheffield United. So the first 5 games, 5 of the teams that were in the top end of the top 5. You know, we've got Liverpool.
Basically, you got the top 6 in the first 5 games, didn't you?
Yeah. Apart from kind of like Brentford, we've pretty much, you know, got the all of those top teams.
Forest are the same. I spoke to Dave. Forest is like, you've seen our fixtures, and he's shaking his head. He's like, we've got Arsenal, then Man City, then United, then Liverpool, and I think it's Chelsea or something like that. Well, they're like, we're going to be bottom in 5 games.
So I know for a fact, and when we do Race for Europe and all the rest of it, I know for a fact people are going to be going at me or Newcastle thinking, oh, you're struggling if we don't pick up results. But we've got a really tough start. After that, we've got a period of games where we go through. If we come through that period and we're picking up points and we're winning games and we're turning teams over, confidence is going to be sky high because we've got through that tough period, picking up big points.
I think you can beat Villa and Brighton. It's Man City and Liverpool. Not losing against those would be like a massive result for you. Do you know what I mean? It's if you you lose one, then you think, the confidence is down when you've got those tough teams. The good thing about it is, like you say, is if you can get through that pretty unscathed, you've got a nice run of fixtures after that. So you'll always get that in the season. You'll always get a nice run and a bad run for sure. I've left this one till last on purpose because our good friend Dan Lawless is a West Ham fan and he's in bits, mate. He's absolutely in bits. If you ever are part of the group, if you're ever part of the WhatsApp group chat, he's depressed, he's down, the Samaritans are engaged. He's got to that stage for him, bless him. He's in an absolute mess. Listen, hi, big up Toby though, by the way. Says, hi guys, what's your thoughts on our window so far? James Ward-Prowse deemed too expensive, so we've moved on now. Wow. Inter Milan have bid 20 million for Scamacca. It's a mess. Come on, you Irons. Right, I've told Dan Lawless to keep his powder dry for now because he can't lose his head right now because West Ham will sign players. However, there is serious concerns about West Ham from the top to bottom at the moment in terms of their recruitment, their ownership, their board, bringing in that Steinton, is it, or whatever his name is, and not doing anything of the sort. Now, while Ward-Prowse, I think, would be an okay signing for West Ham. I think it would be a pretty good signing, actually. There's links with Zakaria, I think. There's links with Conor Gallagher. There's links with Scott McTominay, Harry Maguire. And they've signed the Man City winger, it seems. Carlos Borges, is it? Borges? I don't know how you say his name.
Actually signed him because
I think so.
Today that he wasn't going to sign.
Oh, well, there we go then. If they haven't even signed him, then that's really poor, isn't it? So it doesn't look too good at all. What's your thoughts of West Ham? Because I'm looking at them right now and I'm not saying this because we signed him, but taking Rice away is huge for them, in my opinion. They will replace him with somebody. I don't know who the hell it's going to be, but they will replace him. But I don't know about West Ham, man. I'm starting to wonder how much of a serious club they are. I look at them and think, if you really are that much of a mess and you can't get players in, and you don't have any plan whatsoever to replace Declan Rice when you knew he was going months ago, that would be quite worrying for me if I'm a West Ham fan, Pete.
I'm inclined to agree with you. First and foremost, I read today that they haven't signed a player yet this summer, which
That's embarrassing.
genuinely shocked me with what 2 weeks left to go for the season. But you're right, they are going to sign players. But the problem is that they've pigeonholed themselves into a market that is the worst type of market that you can pigeonhole yourself into, and that is trying to buy players from teams like Man United, the likes of McTominay, Maguire, and players like that. The problem is, and this is like classic business maneuvers that top clubs do all the time. When you know you're going to sell your biggest asset, you invest first before that player leaves. So then the fee is going to be less, and there's not a bounty or a price on your head. Everybody knows that West Ham have 105 million in the bank. So any club that they approach for a player, they're going to add 15, 20 million onto that price. Standard procedure. Why they've let this happen, I've got no idea. And now they're bulking at the prices that teams are putting out for their players. I'm not surprised. James Ward-Prowse, 2 years ago, signed a new 4-year deal at Southampton. He's still got 2 years left on his contract. So Southampton can put a price on whatever they want for him. They put a price last summer of around 50 million for James Ward-Prowse. And he's been their best player even last season in their relegation season. They're not going to let him go cheap. They're not going to have another player that they can sell for that sort of money again. So they're going to try and get every last million out of West Ham for that reason. McTominay for me, when we were linked with him earlier on the season and you asked the question to me, Pops, I said I wouldn't pay any more than 25 million for McTominay. But Man United, being Man United, are going to try and maximise, because of his age, as much money as they possibly can. So they're putting out 40 million, 35 million. He's not worth it. But you know what? West Ham are desperate. They need a midfielder to come in there and make a difference. So that's what Man United are going to do. 20 million is never, ever going to get Harry Maguire, no matter how much Man United want him gone. And the reason being is because the fee and the wages are just... it just doesn't match up. It's not a fee that Man United are going to expect. So they're lowballing a lot of teams and getting rejected, and then wondering why they're getting rejected. So they're in a real pickle right now. And Potts has already, Lawless has already talked about the discrepancies between I think their sporting director wanting certain players, but then other players being wanted by the manager. That's never ever good. And look, I've said it in the chat, we benefited from it because it looked like Harvey Barnes was going to West Ham. It looked like a done deal. And I was shocked that we came in, firstly, and looked like we were going to get the deal. And I was even more shocked when we signed him. I thought he was odds on for West Ham.
So did I.
I'm not complaining because I think he's a super talented player and he's going to do great for us. But again, it's another player that West Ham have lost out on. So I understand why he's feeling the way he is. I just don't think that as the window goes on, as the clock starts ticking down, I don't think it's going to get any better for West Ham. I think it's going to get worse. And they're going to be in a position where they're going to have to overpay players to get them into the club. But my question is, for West Ham, what is Lucas Paqueta thinking right now? Brazilian international, guaranteed in their international team. They're playing European football this season, which is great. But he must be looking around thinking, we've just lost our best player, and yet no one's coming in, and all the pressure is probably going to be put on him. What's the likes of Bowen thinking right now? Mikel Antonio is apparently wanting out of the club. And then there's a bid then for the other striker, Skamaka, coming in, who may well be interested in leaving the club. So it doesn't really look good for them at the moment. They're in a difficult position. And the worst thing that could possibly happen is in their first 2 or 3 games, getting beat. because the pressure's going to ramp up so quickly. And yeah, it's not great for them at all.
It's not. And I was asked the other day about who would be the first manager to be sacked. And it actually crossed my mind that David Moyes could be that guy, because there's so much so many people are unsure about it. Their fixtures are Bournemouth away to start. They've got Chelsea at home next. They've got Brighton away, Luton away, and Man City away. Now, let's be real, Pete. There's Bournemouth and Luton there, but they could quite easily lose to Chelsea, Brighton, and City, and lose 3 out of the first 5. So there's going to be pressure in there that happens, for Moyes and for West Ham. And sometimes I do agree with what Lawler said. I wonder if David Moyes looks and thinks, maybe I should have just walked. I've finished on a high. I win a trophy, which is the first time that's happened at the club for 43 years. And I go out and with respect, because Arsene Wenger should have done that when we beat Hull in 2014. We beat Hull. We turned it around. We won the FA Cup that we hadn't won silverware for 9 years in. And he should have just said, there we go. I finally proved that I can still win you something. I'm off. Pep, Klopp, you're available. They weren't going to Liverpool and City at the time. Sorry, it was Bayern Munich that Pep was going at the time. And we could have got one of those two. And who knows what could have happened with Arsenal. West Ham, I think, need to do that now. They should have done that, in my opinion. I don't think David Moyes is taking them any further than what he's done already. I really do not think that. And I think they'll see that this season, and maybe they'll come to some form of sense and do it. But I think it might be that it'll be too late. But we shall see. Pete, we've got through a lot there, mate, to be fair. And it's a pleasure to do that with you, other than being on my own. So thank you so much for joining me, mate. Make sure you plug your channel, man. How can people follow you?
Yeah, as you can see, Loaded Mag, NUFC. Obviously, my tag on Twitter or whatever it's called now, I've got no idea. Dave's 2010, but Loaded Mag, NUFC. Give us a sub on YouTube, just like the Top Man pod as well. We're 80 or less than 80 away from 6K. So if you can come and show your support and just give us a sub, check out our channel, our content. That would be amazing. And look, as the season goes on, when we play Arsenal and some of the other teams, we'll be getting some familiar faces on the channel, that's for sure. Potts and the rest to talk about their clubs when we play against them. So, yeah, keep in touch with all things Loaded Man.
Excellent stuff. Make sure you do that, people. We are 226 subscribers away from 11K. Let's make sure we can do that in the next couple of shows, please, people. That would be amazing. I'm going to be back tonight anyway at 11 p.m. So hopefully we'll have a few more by then. Hopefully some of you will be back for that show later on at 11. It's going to be a dedicated Arsenal one. So please make sure that if you're a Gooner, make sure you're there. Big up Pete for coming on. Big up everybody for being in the chat. Thank you so much. It's been amazing. Please make sure you do me a favor and like on your way out and subscribe if you're new. And we'll see you next time. Take it easy. See you later on, people.